Hey everybody, it is tournament time. Yeah, so I did get a request to create a new tournament, and as I've always said, if you guys have ideas, I will be more than glad to create those videos for you guys. I mean, these videos are for you guys, and if I have the capabilities of making the video, I will definitely do so. And so the idea was to create a tag team tournament. And so I thought about it, and I kind of wanted to depend on I kind of focused on what kind of tournament I wanted to create. Was it going to be another my favorite tag team type of deal? So, how was I going to situate this type of tournament? Did I want to do LJNs, Hasbro? So what I decided to do was everything, all lines, regardless. If there were tag teams, duplicates, customs, original, I'm going to try my best to include everything that I can. So originally the plan was to write all the names down and just draw the names at random like I did with the Hasbro round 2 onward and square them off that way. But I figured that would take way too long and really might be a little bit too uneven. So I think I'm going to start off with the LJNs and just kind of writing down the names. And this is just some of them. I didn't take down all of them because I have several like Heart Foundation customs. So I decided not to include every single custom of the Heart Foundation, but I do have quite a few in here. If I actually did that, it would probably be worth hours of writing down names. So I'm like, nah. I'll start off with custom LJ, or I'll start off with LJNs first and complete that, and then I'll go into Hasbro and then Galoob, etc. And I'll take all the winners from there, and again from random, pit them winners against each other. I'm kind of curious as to how I would choose. Not just, I mean, this isn't going to be just simply about who my favorite tag team is. It's also going to be about who my favorite tag team figure is. And, same rules apply. Color scheme, playability. The figure itself is still going to play as much of a role in my decision as, my history with the tag teams or anything else, nostalgic reasons. So what I'm going to do is pick these names at random. I'm probably going to pick about 4 names or so. And I'm going to start off slow. I'm going to do about 4 names or 4 matches. I'm going to try and keep my videos relatively quick this time, this tournament. So if I can do my videos in about 15 to 20 minutes as opposed to those 30 to 40 minute videos, I think that's really going to help. And so let's get started. See who my first matchups are going to be. So, first competitor is going to be Mega Maniacs. And they're going to square off against the Legion of Doom custom. That's going to be put off to the side. Next one is the Blue Heart Foundation custom from Wrestling Rider. Is going to square off against the Sid and Barry 4 Horsemen version. Now there actually is 2 different versions of 4 Horsemen, and I have Sid and Barry as one version of that tag team. Next is going to be Doom squaring off against the custom British Bulldogs by Robert Jackson. And the last matchup of this video is going to feature the Strike Force Custom by Robert Jackson. And that one is going to square off against the Brett and Jim Custom So that one is the reason I specified Bret and Jim is because the Bret Hart is going to be a custom by Wrestling Writer, and the Jim Neidhart is going to be another custom by a different seller. I only purchased from him a couple times, so I don't remember who that seller was. That was probably a couple years ago. So I'm going to pause and pull these figures off the shelf, and I will be back, well, for you guys in a split second. Alright guys, so as I said, the first matchup featured the Mega Maniacs squaring off against the Legion of Doom Customs. So, starting off with the Mega Maniacs, these are the figures I selected as my competitors. I just felt like these two figures meshed really well together. So, from Wrestling Writer, the Series 1 Hulk Hogan, and this was kind of like an original San Francisco version, and I believe this one came from name escaped me for a second, but either way, this one he did an absolutely phenomenal job with this Brutus Beefcake custom, and I really love the fact that he included an actual built-in mask and didn't just draw the mask on there. And yeah, so with the history of this figure, I actually had built-in shears with the actual color scheme of this figure, but when I initially received the lot of figures from the seller, he had the shears had busted off, so I shipped it back to him. He fixed it, and he sent new shears. I mean, obviously it's peppermint now, and they were removable. You can actually take these out, but I'm not going to do that. And you could feel the gloves and stuff. I feel like it's the same way. It's been done the same way with like the boots. How it's like epoxy or whatnot to like build these little over boots on top of the other boots. So like in this example, when Eric built the built-on pants, you know, they don't just like draw on, you know, paint on pants or anything. He actually builds pants. He actually built a t-shirt and everything on here. You know, does a built-on hat and everything. You know, I felt like Eric, you know, definitely went above and beyond when he created this Hulk Hogan, and you know, they did the same job. This is in Eric's work. This is it's killing me that I can't remember his name, because this is like one of my most, you know, popular customizers. But the Mega Maniacs, and they are squaring off against the Legion of Doom. So I do have two versions of Legion of Doom. One copy from the from Random Treasures, and one from one seller. I don't remember the seller's name. I bought a couple customs, this being one, and as far, you know, take away the animal, among this version of a Hawk and the Ram Treasures version, this is, among the four figures, this is obviously the best, you know, based on fighting pose and playability. Everything about the figures between the two sets are nearly identical. You know, some of the graphics are a little bit larger than what you'd see on the other set, but relatively the same. I mean, Hawk is nearly identical. Face paint is great on this figure. Color scheme, as far as face paint goes, ideal figures, remarkable. The Hawk figure in and of itself, very reminiscent to the Series 1 Hulk Hogan. So these two can very well mesh up very well, and the paint is, again, just enough to compare to Hulk Hogan. Because of the overall detail that's been put into the Hulk Hogan figure, this can really, I don't think it's just enough to put it over the top. So it really boils down to Hawk and Brutus Beefcake. Hawk in and of himself, light years better with facial paint. With the built-in mask and the accessory, love the color scheme of Brutus. That does definitely give him the leg up. So it boils down to Mega Maniacs. Huge Hulk Hogan fan. Like Brutus Beefcake, but like wasn't really an obsessive fan of him. I've always said that I loved Legion of Doom, that they were my favorite tag team growing up. Would I still say that today? Probably. Why? Because I've always said that Legion of Doom was my favorite tag team. But just because I've always said they were my favorite doesn't necessarily make it true. I mean, the Rockers are amazing. I'm getting to know, the British Bulldogs as a tag team much better, and they're really growing on me. So, and like I said, it's not so much about nostalgia. It's not so much about how you feel about the particular wrestlers. In this particular tournament, it's still about the figures themselves as much as anything. So, I still feel like the Mega Maniacs offer a lot more than what you find with these Legion of Doom figures. So yes, I do covet and am pushing forward Mega Maniacs into round 2. And the Legion of Doom are finished. The next matchup is going to feature the Blue Heart Foundation Customs going up against the first set of 4 Horsemen, which is going to feature Sid Vicious and Barry Windham. So this is probably going to be one of the toughest matchups, not just of this round or this video, but probably the entire tournament. Why? Because the Heart Foundation are probably the greatest figures, or among the greatest figures on the entire LJN line, period. The Jim Net Anvil Neidhart is a top 10 LJN figure. Fantastic pose. Awesome figure. I didn't so much care about him. You look at him in like actual wrestling, old videos, he's super slim right here. I didn't really pay much attention to him, but like every time I've seen him wrestle, he looked really chunky. So they really slimmed him down for this figure. So he does have an amazing pose, and the look is really nice. I don't know. I've said it before. I think a lot of the time when you have a lot of these figures that don't really have much in-ring talent, they do better jobs with their wrestling figures because maybe the fans, little kids and whatnot, may not really want their figures if you had like a Harley Race figure. If you got your arms in like this, you're not really playable. Who's going to want that? If you give like a Harley Race pose like this for like a Bret Hart, who's a very coveted character, yeah, you might have a lot of kids gravitate towards that. I mean, look at Bret Hart. This is basically a punch-only character. This is a terrible pose. Like, I myself have many a time said that I absolutely love the Bret Hart figure, but in reality, when you actually look at it, it is not that good of a figure. In fact, it may not, I'm not saying it's terrible, but it's like I put Bret Hart in the top 15 of my all-time favorite LJNs, but it really isn't, that good. But because he's Bret Hart, a very coveted character, yes, most certainly you're going to, put him, much higher up your list. Heart Foundation, love these figures. These customs come from Eric Boyer, wrestling writer. He did an amazing job. So, from Stinger GQ, he had a version of this on his account, which I missed out on. And I was very disappointed. So, I reached out to Eric. Hey, man, here's a picture. Can you make these figures for me? Did them up. Did a phenomenal job. Loved it. And I get a lot of Heart Foundation figures from him. So, yeah, I'm really glad to have these. Alright, and in this matchup, the Heart Foundation goes up against, from Random Treasures, the Galoob 2-Ups of Barry Windham and Sid Vicious. Now, here's the tough thing about these figures. Sid Vicious is the figure I probably had the most fun with as a kid. The Galoob Sid Vicious, easily probably my most played with figure. And when I talk about childhood, Sid Vicious Galoob, probably number one. among figures, and you follow up by figures like Hasbro Undertaker Series 4 and Series 4 Bret Hart. And then you throw in, like, your little bendies figures, like your, I don't know, Marvel Incredible Hulk, or Harry from Harry and the Hendersons bendy, or your Panthro Thundercats figure, for example, or I don't know, who was the other big cat guy, Jackalman, something like that. So those are like some of, like, most commonly played with action figures. This was always my most perfect figure. And when I started collecting LJNs and I saw the Big John Stud figure, I think to this day I still gravitate towards Big John Stud as my favorite because, they got very similar poses, very close. And when I did my last tournament, and my last LJN tournament, and I had this figure as part of it, and to see him in the finals, I thought that this was probably the one figure in the world, as an LJN, the one figure in the world that could have offset Bruiser Brody as my champion. He was close. He was definitely close. And Barry Windham. Oh my God. I never knew about Barry Windham until within the last couple of years. I never knew about this figure. I never had this as a kid. Once I started collecting Gloobs a couple years ago, I finally got this figure, and you know what? It bleeds in beautifully. If you're a collector of Gloob figures, if you have these two figures and no other figure from the line, you are good. You are set. If you're locked up in a prison cell and you had all these two figures, that's all you need. They work so beautifully together. These are just so much fun. So, with that being said, at face value, yes, the Hart Foundation are probably $300 to $400 figures, where these are probably more like around $250, and still very playable, very enjoyable figures, very enjoyable characters, great look, decent poses, great playability, but to me, as far as playability and fun, these are about the best of the best. I don't think, as far as play goes, you can get any better than these two figures. They're simple black figures all around. Yes, the Hart Foundation has the color scheme. Bret Hart is among my top 5. Probably my number 4 or 5, yeah. Probably my number 4 all-time favorite wrestler. But the Four Horsemen, or 2 among the members of the Four Horsemen faction, I am pushing. And like I said, I have 2 sets of the Four Horsemen in this competition, in this tournament. So here's your first set of the Four Horsemen, and they are moving forward. I am shocked to see these guys gone the first go around. 18 minutes. I could either end the video here or keep going to 30 minutes, but blue. Okay, we just did this one. Next one is British Bulldogs Custom versus Doom. So the British Bulldogs, these come from Robert Jackson. I am not a fan of the British Bulldogs because, well, they're figures. Absolutely love Davey Boy Smith, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. I don't care what era you're from. Davey Boy Smith, love the character, love the wrestler, absolutely amazing. Literally the best of the best. He is right up there. Intercontinental champion, tag team champion. Perennial contender in every single Royal Rumble he's in. Battle Royal champion. Just an amazing talent. Davey Boy Smith, I never even heard, or excuse me, Dynamite Kid, never even heard of him until I started collecting LJNs. And he's so flashy in the ring. He's like watching the Rockers. I mean, he's all over the place. You know, very acrobatic, amazing. But the figures themselves, they're so tiny. And these one arm up in the air are just so terrible. I do not enjoy the British Bulldog figures. Now, the one thing I do love about these particular figures is that Rob did an amazing job with the paint scheme. So, you got rid of that tacky, all red, or round. The original paint scheme ain't bad, but the white really pops, and then you put in, the UK colors. Add the Great Britain flag. And I got this little stand here, so you can't see it, but it's got the little British flag on the back of the pants as well. It's just a little flag here on the butt of the figures. So I like these figures so much more than the original LJN release. So that's a huge upgrade from LJN to the custom. They are squaring off against Doom. The sad thing about this battle, or sad thing about this tournament in general, is that Butch Reed has Ron Simmons as a partner. I don't care how horrible the competition is. How can Butch Reed ever expect to progress to the next matchup when Ron Simmons is your partner? Here's even worse. Going off subject here. I don't know if anyone has seen the new Random Treasures release. Again, going off subject here. This is one of the reasons why I'm losing faith and don't even consider myself a fan of Random Treasures anymore. I just think that they're becoming worse and worse with every new release. I'm really becoming, saddened by them. So recently they've taken a Ron Simmons and created Macho Man. I'm like, how can you take quite possibly the worst action figure ever created and give it to Macho Man, one of the greatest wrestlers? Why is it so hard to give Macho Man a fantastic look? Hello. You already have a perfect figure in your inventory. You take a horrible figure and why? This is why I can't give my money to Ram Treasures. At one point, I actually owned every single figure, every single accessory, every single belt, every single belt color, and everything that you could imagine from Ram Treasures, and I just stopped buying from them. It's just so hard to find good quality products from them now because they just keep coming out with crap after crap. Okay, I'm gonna stop with my rant. I'm sorry. I'm just, I just saw this figure and I just thought about the Macho Man figure, and yeah, just sheer disappointment. I don't recommend, but someone else might see it. They may be in love with it, but I'm just not. With this Ron Simmons, I decided to go a little bit differently when I bought it from Ram Treasures, and I only bought it because it's the Galoop 2-Up, and I decided to keep going with all the Galoop 2-Ups. So I decided to get the UK exclusive with the stripe down with the bright blue pants and the stripe down the leg. It looks good, glossy. Butch Reed, he's right there with Sid Vicious and Barry Windham among the Galoop figures. they're really the only 3 figures that are worth their weight. The only 3 figures that have poses that are actually playable and actually worth the money that it costs to purchase them. Here's the thing. No, excuse me. Butch Reed alone makes up is a better figure than the other 3 figures combined. But Ron Simmons, we're looking at Ron Simmons. We're looking at a tag team. Ron Simmons as Farouk and I don't know these other personas. I don't know. He just never seemed like the type of character that I ever got into. And of course Farouk and those other guys. I mean, it was at a time I was never watching wrestling anyways, so I want to see this tag team move forward because I really want the opportunity to talk about these guys a little bit more. I just can't do it. This is a phenomenal figure. This is an elite figure. Ron Simmons ruined the chance of this figure going very far. But yes, the custom Robert Jackson, and you know what? I love my customs, and I still think that these figures have the potential to go relatively far. Are they going to go 4, 5, 6 rounds, or however many rounds there are? They don't have to. If they make it 3 rounds, you know what? I would feel like that'd be a pretty good run. With the amount of figures and with the combination of Hasbro and Original San Francisco and Galoob, you know what? Yeah. I don't know. I may not include Original San Francisco. I might do. I'm gonna do Hasbro. I might do Galoob. I'll probably just do the tag teams for the figures that I have loose. So I might include Remco as well. Because it may not make sense to show figures that are in card or on card, because it's not going to be really easy to show. Yeah, so I'll probably do it that way. But if I'm doing the LJNs and I'm at like 10 videos or 12 videos, then I'll stop to talk about mixing up different lines and I'll just stick strictly with LJNs. Alright, 27 minutes. Last matchup is going to feature the Brett and Jim Custom going against the Strike Force. Strike Force Custom from Robert Jackson. So Strike Force Customs. Now the Strike Force Customs from Robert Jackson are probably some of his absolute best work. And he's got a number of incredible pieces. Now, a good chunk of what I buy from him are Hasbro related, but what I've gotten from him from LJN are also impeccable. We'll start with the Tito Santana. In general, I do not like Tito Santana's figures because I just do not like the pose. I think Tito Santana is one of the worst LJNs, but he did remarkably well with this figure and took one of the worst LJNs and made it so remarkable that I actually want this not only this figure but this tag team to go so far in this tournament. And everything from the Strike Force emblem to the little sombrero on the back. Beautiful artwork or decal. Is that a decal? Yeah, it feels like a decal. It feels like it's stuck on. Either way, beautiful graphics on the shirt and trunks. Very well done. To go along with the Rick Martel, which I didn't put him on my top 20, which I messed up on. He should have been like number 11 or something, or somewhere around there. And whenever I stop being lazy and start making the 21 through 30 countdown, he will be my number 21 mark for greatest LJN original figures. Absolute perfect figure. And this Strike Force tandem, incredible. And they will go up against, from Wrestling Writer, Bret the Hitman Hart. And again, I don't remember who this Jim Neidhart came from. I don't know, for some reason I feel like I talked about these guys already. Which, because I did, I talked about the blue versions, but not these particular version yet. So, this Bret Hart in particular, I was going out on deployment in December 2021, and I only deployed for like a month or whatever, and after being, my boss, Bracima, was so trashy that I'm like, you know what, I've been deploying for over a decade, and I'm so fed up with this. I've got a master's degree. I'm working on my doctorate. I've been deployed for a dozen years, almost, on and off. That's a long time to be away from my family and be away from my home. It's time for me to come home. And so I never, when I go on deployment, I never expect to be gone for such a little amount of time. But before I left the States and left out on deployment, this was one of the mega purchases I made while I was in the hotel. And I got this one, and I got the Rick Rude from Wrestling Writer. And I bought them, so I went out and bought this, and I bought the Rick Rude, and I should have bought them together and asked for an invoice, so I kind of messed that one up. But man, Eric, he's just become like such an important person in my life as not just a seller, man, just as like a friend and and a resource. Someone I talk to constantly, someone I relate to, and someone who helps me out so much with just history and stuff. This figure, it's like right there with the Bruiser Brody, one of the most important pieces of my collection, especially among the custom collection. And this figure, I don't remember who this came from. I think if you remember from the Bundy collections we were looking at a few videos ago, the Bundy 3-pack with Sheik and Volkov, the same seller that I bought that from, I bought this from. And one of my favorite figures. So in both LJN tournaments that I've made, I kept ending up with this version beating the original, and then this figure beating his original counterpart, and then like round 2 or round 3, these two square off against each other. And it always frustrates me because I'm like, every time I always feel like, hey, these two figures are so good that they could end up in the last 2 and they could be the 2 finalists. And that's kind of where I stand right now. When I wanted to put the Hart Foundation together, and I wanted to put, a lot of the customs together because I have so many Hart Foundation figures, original, customs. I wanted to put these two together because I truly believe that these two figures together are the biggest powerhouse I could possibly use. And this is tough, because this is a legitimate tag team put together. And this is kind of like not scrap, but it is an actual Hart Foundation tag team, but they're just customized. Well, they're both customized, but just customized far differently. This is really hard. You would think it's a no-brainer between the Hart Foundation and Strike Force, but Rick Martel is not a top 10 figure for me. Jim Neidhart is. Tito Santana is a top 10 worst action figure. And I have Bret Hart as a top 15 action figure. So at the end of the day, I do think that has to play some kind of role. do not take anything away from these. If this wasn't a random drawing, or if the random drawing pit these guys up against someone else, there is probably a 95% chance these guys would have moved on to another round. And I'm pretty sure if this went 5, 6, 7 rounds, these guys could have probably gone, somewhere towards the latter, 4 or 5 rounds. These figures are that good. But these Heart Foundation figures are going to move forward. So, the Mega Maniacs, the Heart Foundation, the British Bulldogs, and the Four Horsemen are going to be your members in round 2. So, I wanted a 15-minute video, and I went over 20 minutes past that. Sorry, guys. I'm probably going to have to stick to like 4 matchups per video and not 5 or more, because it looks like I'm probably going to have to have a 30-minute video every time. I just don't see a way to cut it down to 15-20 minutes. It's basically going to be, hey, I like this one more than this, and that's it. If I want to do a 15-minute video, and I just can't bring myself, I have to talk about it a little bit. Otherwise, it just makes no sense for me to make that video. Well, hopefully this was enjoyable. Let me know what you guys think, and if the time is too much for you guys, I will do my best to shave it down. If so, tell me in the comments. If not, if you like the time and you don't mind, then I will continue as usual. Thanks, everybody.